So they call this thing the Speed, and it's meant to be the most dynamic car in Bentley's 101-year history. Welcome back to RBR, and you find me here in Silverstone with a Grand Tourer, and none of that makes sense. But the reason we're doing it is so we can get our hands on this, which is a very, very special Grand Touring Bentley. It is the third generation Speed of the newest generation of Continentals that we found to be pretty amazing. So in this video today, we're going to show you all of the car, both inside and out. What are the technical changes that make this Speed more special than the standard W12 Conti? And then we'll even get a chance to go out on the Silverstone track with this, see what it's like, see what those changes have done to the car. So let's dive straight in and check out this, the brand new GT Continental Speed. So on the face of it, it doesn't really look like a lot has changed visually on the Speed, but this is what this video is all about today. I want to show you everything that's changed outside, I want to show you everything that's changed inside, and then everything that's changed under the skin. Now, before we dive into the new Speed, let's recap where the idea of the Speed came from. It came in the first generation of Continental GT in 2007. We had our first Speed, similar formula to today, adding more power, adding more dynamism to a standard Continental GT. This shed weight, in fact, by 35 kg. It added 42 brake horsepower, 100 Newton meters of torque as well. So it added that extra X factor to the standard Continental. And that's exactly what the second generation did as well. But in its facelift, it went up to 626 brake horsepower and 800 Newton meters of torque. And this version even reached up to 206 miles an hour. That car had a lower ride height, an uprated chassis and suspension package. Of course, it's always been from the W12 engines in the Continental as well. And our new car, indeed, is no different. It is still a W12 engine, which is glorious. Enjoy it, guys, while you can. Now, this Speed is even faster. This time, we've got 650 brake horsepower, 900 Newton meters, and a 0 to 60 of 3.5 seconds. I actually test it to be a lot faster here in Silverstone, so wait to see just how fast it is. But what have they actually changed on it? Because when you compare it to a standard Continental GT, well, they look very, very similar, don't they? But you've got some typical Speed things in this. For example, first of all, we've got the darkened front grille, and that's always been the case with the Speeds. You have this darkened element instead of the bright chrome that you find on the standard Continentals, and it looks quite good. The other most obvious factor is the Speed wheels. These are 22 inches, they're huge, they look fantastic on this GT body, and they really suit the overall stance of it, and they'll help the Speed differentiate itself to the standard Conti. And you'll also find a discreet Speed badge here on the side, which looks pretty damn cool. The front splitter is pretty obvious. Again, it's a sign of the Speed. We've got the side sills as well, which have a nice little chrome Bentley logo right at the end of it, and a unique rear diffuser as well. On the rear of the car, we've got the Akrapovic exhaust system, which is an optional extra on this. You'll see what that sounds like in a minute as well. And you've got a carbon fiber spoiler on the rear boot lid. So really, in terms of design, not a massive amount changed, but that is the way of the Speed. You darken some things out, you have unique wheels, and a few other elements that make this slightly unique versus the standard car. But while not a lot has changed on the exterior, quite a bit has changed under the skin. And it's mainly all in the rear part of the car. The most important thing is we've got all-wheel steering. So we've got rear axle steering on this. It goes up to 4.1 degrees. I've actually got the unit here, I can show you. It adds a few kg, but what it adds in terms of dynamism is mega, and you'll see that later. We've also got a quicker steering ratio on the front to then make up for the difference of the steering on the rear. Then we have the E-diff on the rear, so the E-LSD, and this again adds a few kg, but it's going to help massively in eliminating understeer, getting power to the right wheel, and then allowing you to shoot out of a corner. And again, you'll see that later on here on track at Silverstone. We've still got the same air suspension as the Continental GT, but now modified for the Speed, and the same 48 volt system with 1300 Newton meters worth of forces, allowing you to keep the car as straight as possible. Then we have some of the biggest carbon ceramic discs you'll ever find. In fact, I think they are the biggest on a road car. These are 10 piston, 440 millimeter ones on the front, and 4-piston on the rear. They are massive, and again, as you'll see later, really help in stopping the car dead. The final thing they've done is really separate sport mode as a much more sporty mode versus Bentley or comfort. So in terms of your ESP modes, your suspension, and the 8-speed gearbox, which they've allowed to shift twice as fast versus the standard Continental in sport mode, now sport sets itself apart as a mode that's a lot more dynamic than comfort and Bentley. So those are all the changes made to the 650 brake horsepower Continental Speed. Now let's head inside, show you some of the interior changes. Then I'm going to do a launch control and show you just how fast this car is in reality. I really like the interior of this Speed. It just speaks to me. You've got a dash of colour, which is really important. I don't like black interiors. This has got a lovely line of colour that's on the seats. It also goes on the door card I learnt today. It follows the shape of the car. So you know you've got that muscular shoulder on the rear of the Continental. You've got that same line in colour on the rear part of the, well, it's not door card, is it? On the rear section, if you like. And it's just little things like that that really make this really quite special. In fact, they've got a Continental Cabriolet here, Speed as well, which is in a lovely orange, and the interior looks even better on that. You can see what I mean by the flowing colour lines and how it all just comes together rather spectacularly to make a very special looking interior. Centre console is quite different. You've got what they call engine turned aluminium here. It's very nice. It's very kind of aeronautical, I almost feel, in its look. And that pairs wonderfully with what we discovered in our full Continental review last time, which was the little details that make the Conti so special, like this for the air vents, or the best party trick, which is of course the screens over here. So you've got your digital screen, then you've got your analog dial as well, which I absolutely love with the compass there. Really feels like an old classic car, and it suits the Bentley character so much. All the diamond quilting is your standard Bentley stuff. In terms of the colours that you can get, there's 15 different main colours and 11 different colour separators, so a lot of choice for the customer. You've got the Speed logos on the top of the headrest here, again, which is a nice little touch. Goes nicely with the Speed logo that you have here on front on the passenger side, which then matches the logo that we had on the outside as well. Of course, in front, we've got a full digital screen now. The dials are slightly different here in the Speed, which is nice. It's nice to have a unique look for a more special model like this. Now, you really want to see what this car sounds like because we have that Akrapovic exhaust system. Let's turn it on and put it into sport mode and give you some revs. Now, I have to put on this silly helmet because we're at Silverstone. Let's go out and see what the launch control is like. I was shocked how fast this car did 0 to 60. Right guys, so here we are in the Speed at Silverstone. Bentley themselves were the first to admit that it's not the most common thing to have a big luxury cruiser, even though it's something called the Speed on a place like Silverstone. But the reason that they've done it is to get the car out and into our hands, so at least we can do something. So I thought let's start with the launch control first and see how the car fares. And there you go, we've got a 0 to 60 of 3.1 seconds in a car that is this big. That is insane. Now the first thing you feel immediately, which is completely unsurprising to you guys, is the rear wheel steering aspect. It's very, very obvious. And what it helps to do, particularly in smaller corners, is obviously reduce your turning circle, as we said. But in high speeds, it helps with stability, and that really helps with a larger car like this. It's amazing what this car feels like, despite being so large. It's actually not too bothered on a circuit like Silverstone. I'm quite surprised. It's got bounds and bounds of speed, and you still feel it despite being on a big track like this. Normally, you know, you don't really feel the speed of a car like this on such a large track, because unless you're driving a race car, all cars feel slow, don't they? But there's no hiding the 650 brake horsepower, and more so, I think, the torque figure in this is immense. Now, the other thing that you feel in almost every corner is that E-diff doing its work. So you're going into a corner, instead of the car understeering, you can feel the rear wheel putting power down and helping you rock it off into the distance instead. And it makes a big difference on a car like this. This car's got the optional Krapovich exhaust system, but again, because of this, you can't really hear it all that well. So the other awesome thing, apart from the weight saving of the ceramics, is how good they are. Look, we're gonna go, they're incredible. The biting power is absolutely fantastic. Whether you'll need it on normal roads, I don't know. But for this kind of work, they do the job. So guys, I'd love to know, how silly do I look in this helmet? Please tell me in the comments. So the other thing I love is the front end turn-in. Now they did change the turn-in of the front. It's probably taking into account a bit of the rear wheel steering aspect as well. But it just feels a bit more communicative. Down the straight now. And again, let's make use of those carbon ceramics. Massive stopping power, massive stopping power. I can't think of anything else in the luxury class of this size of GT car with 4 seats, with proper grand touring ability, that can behave like this car does. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this first drive, albeit on track with the Continental Speed. Hope to get this back on the road ASAP to see what it's like. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe and share it. And I'll see you guys next time. One more lap, I think.